This is the first lecture of the logic and set theory, so this will be an introduction. I hope that this course to be a practical one where you learn to read and write proofs yourself. I will not present too much technical details. The course homepage is written here, and mostly we will use the KLMS. So basically you go to Portal and go to KLMS. Grading and so on is in the Moodle or in KLMS. Let me explain the structure of this course and the course material. So first will be the introduction. In section 1 we will learn logic. So here we will use the book by Nolte called Logic. So the first we will talk about what is an argument. Second, we will begin to study the propositional logic. So this includes the truth table and all operators, truth, true and false, and well-formed formulas. In propositional calculus, we will discuss the inference rules and logical deductions and the method of these. And in predicate calculus, we will study the universal and existential operators. In predicate calculus, we will study the inferences using universal and existential operators. In the second part, we will study how to prove it. We will learn to prove mathematical statements. So the first part is the proof techniques. So this corresponds to the above methods of the logic. And then we will use that to study sets, relations, and functions. In section 3, naive set theory, we will study the basic operations of the set theory, union, intersections, and we will begin to present the axioms of the set theory. In section 4, in presentation, you will be giving presentations, piano axioms, arithmetics, the axiom of choice, Jones' lemma, well-ordering, transfinite recursion, ordinal numbers, cardinal numbers, and ordinal and cardinal arithmetics. So these are all central concepts in modern mathematics. So for some helpful references are as below here. And also I would like to mention that the Plato Stanford EDU content has much resources in general on the philosophy of logic. Okay, so please consult these books whenever you need them, and you might need if you want to study in detail. So I will explain some history of logic and what is its relation to mathematics from now on. So first people to consider logic were Greeks. Perhaps they obtained ideas from Egypt and Babylonia, which studied at least 2,000 years before the Greek civilization. Logic concerns how to argue in a sound manner. Socratic method is the most powerful method of analyzing arguments, and these are very useful in the field of logic. Of course, the Socratic method is much more than just logic. It's a very good way to study arguments. On the other hand, there were sophists, contemporaneous with Socrates, so they believe that truth is not knowable in some extent, contrary to Socrates. So they were in general thought that the truth can be changed from situation to situation without really solid foundations. So basically, Socrates, Plato, and his followers believed that extremely careful analysis and cross-examination examination can lead to knowledge by building one on the top of already carefully built ideas. So in this philosophy, Aristotelian syllogism was developed. So this is the basically ancient method of logic, and it's actually now superseded by Frege and Russell. And basic problem with these is that some of these were actually wrong, and now Frege and Russell corrected their mistakes. But they were used for thousands of years. Do we believe in progress or not? Is it all illusion? So we will be basically following the Socrates and Plato in this regard. Okay, so there are lots of controversies about what constitutes truth and sound arguments. These form the main subject of philosophy. So we will not be studying these. But the main problem here is that to understand anything, we need pure reasoning and much interpretations. How does this happen? So what we consider as reality is some rough picture which we inherit from our teachers and other people, and social pressure to behave and think in conventional way. This pressure can even come from a very good small group, in fact. Ultimately, I think all science and mathematics belong to humanistic studies and are influenced by humanistic approaches. So logic currently studied follows one such choice of thought. Okay, so I don't really believe it's the whole truth, but it's very much close to it. So logic as developed by Russell and so on have much controversies where philosophers are still working on. So see this Plato website. So basically Russell follows what's called the logical atomism. So this means that you can always break down the truth into very, very small atoms of truth, so that where you can tell which is true or false. Okay. So on the other hand, there are other developments such as postmodernism, and they of course do not believe in logical atomism, and but one should not really believe in these approaches too much. Okay? And of course postmodernism is quite popular and is taught everywhere in the colleges, but what is their contribution, we really don't know. In general, Asian philosophies such as Confucianism, Taoism, and so on do not study logic or arguments, and Neo-Confucianism studied some of these questions in the 16th century. Also, Buddhism has a form of logic, and ancient Indians also developed some logic, but and they are pretty close to the Western one, but this is not what we are following. So why should we be doing logic? Okay, so arguments for logical thinking is follows. What is great about Western thinking is that even though world is chaotic and variable, and there are so many cheatings going on, and they believe that there are central laws discoverable and understandable by man. I think this is somewhat Christian belief. There is a very good principle. This is a very good principle that applies today. One should never give up hope in this regard. Okay? Otherwise, we will be accepting kind of chaos. Perhaps Asian culture never tried to do this because of religion. Neo-Confucian scholars claim that truth is not understandable by mankind. So they tend to make many mysterious statements, which is ambiguous without knowing much context. Western historians saw the reluctance of the scholars to ask questions about various things that are decided by kings. Okay? So they limited themselves very much. So if we believe in mysteries and ambiguities, so then where do we end up? the systematic study of axiomatization and reductionism are, very important tools to be used before you attempt other methods. These methods can lead us very far, but many have led us very far. But many Western people are suggesting more kind of holistic view, such as emergence. So one of the people who developed this was actually a Korean philosopher in the U.S. So how much will this succeed? What is the right kind of holism? So we don't have a really good idea what it is doing, and but it is very. It used to be very popular. Okay, the arguments against the purely logical thinking. During the development of calculus, there were many controversies. Newton's infinitesimal was considered nonsense by the philosopher Berkeley. So, for example, he showed that many inconsistencies in Newton's uses of infinitesimal. So later, this was corrected by Cauchy and later mathematicians, and they changed these infinitesimal concept to epsilon and delta argument that you see in analysis today. Also, Euler wrote many integrals and series formulas which could be considered nonsense today, and so Cauchy attacked Euler and studied many new criteria for convergences. And the real number system was not defined until Dedekind, but people knew what it was and used this very effectively at any rate. Riemann studied to define surfaces and manifolds. He assumed existence of some harmonic functions using Dirichlet principle, but these concepts were not defined yet because they didn't have the set theory, so these were found to be groundless by Weierstrass. But later, these were all justified by using set theory and some heavy analysis. Cantor defined ordinals and cardinals. So Hilbert called this paradise, but during this time they didn't accept this. And also another thing was that Cantor's definition is really too big and too wild, that we don't really use his definition, but we use a modified version of ordinals and cardinals in the set theoretical framework today. To settle these later, mathematicians developed the logical foundation of mathematics. So the pattern is that the mysterious concepts arise, then we find the new foundation to explain them. Note that they could not settle these issues with the ideas of the time or the languages that they used. Okay? So if they didn't have the precise enough language to discuss whether this was true or false and that kind of thing.